Welcome back to another deep dive here on the show.
Great to be back.
Today, we're locking on to a really fascinating subject, the B-1 Lancer bomber. We've gathered quite an interesting set of materials to explore.
Yeah, we're looking at everything from, its initial blueprints, its early days, all the way through to its current role in military operations around the globe.
Exactly. And thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoy this kind of in-depth exploration, please do hit that like button and maybe subscribe. It really helps us bring you more content like this.
It really does. So, like you said, we've sifted through online discussions, news articles covering deployments, even its planned retirement. And there's a very detailed study tracing its evolution over the decades.
Our goal here is basically to unpack the story.
Right.
Give you a clear understanding of this aircraft's journey, what it can do, and how it fits into that bigger picture of strategic air power.
Precisely. Extracting the key insights for you.
Okay, so let's jump right back to the beginning. The B-1, it wasn't just dreamed up overnight. What was the original thinking?
Well, the fundamental idea, and our sources really highlight this, was to create a long-range bomber, one that could economically strike a lot of targets with conventional weapons.
Okay.
Or maybe fewer targets, but with nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about large aircraft built for reach, which, often means trade-offs in other areas, like maybe close quarters air combat capability.
Right. And even before the B-1 as we picture it now, it sounds like there were some, well, seriously ambitious concepts being thrown around, things that really show the challenge of designing for that kind of distance.
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating to look back at some of the really early explorations, like Lockheed Skunk Works in the late 1950s. They were looking at liquid hydrogen-powered aircraft.
Liquid hydrogen, wow.
Yeah, I know. And while that wasn't the B-1 itself, some of those designs were just enormous. We're talking nearly 300 feet long, takeoff weights getting close to 400,000 pounds.
That's huge.
It gives you a real sense of the scale needed for true intercontinental range, even back in the early days of jets.
So it sounds like just getting the B-1 program, the actual B-1 program off the ground was a pretty significant undertaking in itself.
It certainly was. From the get-go, the B-1 program was, well, kind of tangled up in political debates, changing military doctrines, and quite a few technological hurdles.
Sounds familiar for big defense projects.
Right. One source even describes it as potentially the most expensive and arguably most controversial weapons system ever produced.
That's quite a statement.
That level of scrutiny, though, it's almost inevitable with something so advanced, so costly.
And we've seen this kind of pattern before, haven't we? Can you maybe give us some context from earlier bomber development post-World War II that helps us understand where the B-1 came from?
Yeah, if you look at the bigger picture, the Air Force after World War II was constantly pushing the envelope. Technologically, aerodynamically, they pursued some really ambitious projects.
Yeah.
Think the B-1B Valkyrie.
High speed, right.
Exactly, aiming for incredibly high speeds. And then there was the A&P, the Aircraft Nuclear Propulsion Program, a nuclear-powered plane. Seriously, nuclear-powered.
Yeah. The fact that the A&P program eventually got canceled really shows you the huge technological challenges they faced and also how strategic priorities kept shifting. That always influences aircraft development.
And the B-1B, that wasn't exactly smooth sailing either, was it?
No, precisely. The B-1B faced a lot of political opposition, major funding challenges. It just underscores how even revolutionary designs can struggle to navigate that complex world of defense procurement.
So the B-1 program kind of emerged into this dynamic, maybe contentious environment?
Yeah, it came about when the U.S. was actively trying to modernize its strategic defenses. So, yeah, very dynamic, often contentious.
Okay, so who actually ended up getting the contract, the design that became the B-1?
The contract for the B-1A, the first version, went to North American Rockwell, late 1960s.
Okay.
And interestingly, some analyses suggest this might have been partly influenced by the government wanting to spread defense contracts around a bit more. Rockwell had missed out on a big fighter contract, so maybe this was seen as a way to, distribute the work. Politics playing a role, imagine that. So what were the key features of that first B-1A prototype?
By 1975, the B-1A prototype achieved what they call initial operating capability. It was designed as a low-altitude, high-speed penetrator.
Flying low and fast to sneak in.
Exactly. Hug the terrain, get under radar. But the Air Force had incredibly ambitious targets for it. They wanted greater range, greater speed than any existing bomber.
And the payload.
And capable of carrying an unprecedented 40 tons of nuclear weapons deep into Soviet territory.
40 tons. Wow.
That level of ambition, well, it naturally led to some pretty formidable technical
It
challenges.
sounds like those very challenges might have been the B-1A's undoing, at least initially.
That's a key point, yeah. Costs were going up, those technical problems wouldn't go away, and that fueled a lot of political debate. Eventually, President Carter canceled the B-1A program in 1977.
But like you said, that wasn't the end of the line for the Lancer.
Nope, because President Reagan revived the program in the early 1980s. But, and this is important, with some pretty significant changes.
Right, leading to the B-1B, what was different?
Exactly, the B-1B variant. It incorporated some key changes from the original B-1A. We're talking structural improvements, upgraded avionics.
Yep.
Crucially, that terrain-following radar, which makes the low-altitude flight work, and enhanced weapons capabilities.
So the testing really focused on those upgrades.
Yeah, the flight testing during that phase was all about validating the new stuff, rigorous software testing, making sure it worked with the existing range of Air Force weapons.
And was it immediately packed with all the latest missiles?
Interestingly, no. Even though the B-1B was certified to carry the SRAM missile, that's the short-range attack missile, it wasn't initially part of its approved weapons list when it first became operational.
Oh, yeah.
The later stages of testing focused more on things like navigation accuracy, its ability to actually penetrate at low altitudes, survivability, weapon delivery precision, mission reliability, and just how easy it was to fix things if they went wrong.
Got it. So when did the B-1B officially enter service then?
Operational mission certification was achieved in 1986, and it was quickly hailed as, quote, the most advanced bomber in the world.
Big claim.
And they backed it up, partly. Just a year later, 1987, it set world speed records flying low with a heavy payload. It even got the highest score ever recorded for a Strategic Air Command, or SAC, Operational Readiness Inspection in 1990.
Impressive.
And by 1991, it had also completed its certification for non-nuclear missions.
So it started its life very much in that nuclear deterrent role, but then things shifted pretty dramatically after the Cold War ended.
That's a really pivotal moment in the B-1's story. September 1991, President George H.W. Bush makes this landmark decision: take all B-1Bs off nuclear alert.
Huge change.
Fundamentally changed its primary mission. It signaled a move towards a predominantly conventional role for the aircraft.
And that wasn't just like flipping a switch on paper. It required a real transformation in how it was used, maintained, everything.
Absolutely. This shift meant big organizational changes, cultural changes, technological adjustments. The B-1 moved from under Strategic Air Command, with its nuclear focus,
Right, yes.
to Air Combat Command, ACC, which is geared towards conventional operations. That demanded a whole new approach to mission planning, tactical employment, the lot.
So what were the key programs that actually made this transformation happen? Turned it into a conventional bomber.
The Conventional Munitions Upgrade Program, CMUP, was absolutely essential. Its main goal was to fully integrate the B-1 into the combat air force structure and seriously boost its capabilities for conventional warfare.
Right.
CMUP implementation gave it 6 new mission-critical capabilities for conventional wartime missions. Things like CONUS-to-CONUS deployments, flying from the U.S. to a conflict zone and back, and long-range power projection.
And precision weapons, I assume, became a major focus.
Without a doubt. Integrating the JDAM, the Joint Direct Attack Munition, was a core part of CMUP. These are the GPS-guided bombs, very accurate.
The smart bombs.
Exactly. The upgrades also included better systems for launching and monitoring weapons, improved GPS for navigation and targeting, and even more secure, jam-resistant voice comms to coordinate better with other forces.
And they were also planning for standoff weapons, the ones you launch from further away, outside enemy defenses.
Yes. The plan was definitely to integrate standoff weapons like JSOW, the Joint Standoff Weapon, and JASSM, the Joint Air-Surface Standoff Missile. The block modifications also improved things like the conventional bomb module and the rotary launcher, making it more flexible with different types of bombs.
So it sounds like this whole transition wasn't always smooth sailing, especially when it came to funding.
You're right. Budget cuts in the mid-90s definitely threw a wrench in the works for CMUP. It impacted planned upgrades to its electronic countermeasures, its ECM systems, and also ongoing software improvements.
So Congress got involved.
Yeah, Congress was understandably concerned about the B-1's performance and the rising costs of all these modernizations. They actually mandated an operational readiness assessment, an ORA.
A big test, basically. How did it do?
Fortunately for the program, the B-1 passed the ORA in 1995. It showed it could achieve a high mission-capable rate if it got adequate support, enough spare parts, good maintenance, well-trained crews.
So beyond just the tech upgrades, it seems like there was a real need to change how the crews trained and how they worked with other conventional forces.
That's a crucial point. Just upgrading the jet wasn't enough. You needed realistic conventional training, seamless integration.
Hmm.
So B-1 units started flying in big exercises like Red Flag, integrating with the USAF Weapons School.
Get them into the mix.
Exactly. That hands-on experience helped refine tactics, build credibility within the wider conventional air power world, and assigning experienced fighter pilots to B-1 units in the Air National Guard in '96. That brought fresh perspectives on training and tactics, too.
Okay, so when did we first see these new conventional capabilities really put to the test in combat?
The B-1 made its conventional combat debut in Operation Desert Fox, 1998. Interestingly, though, in that first fight, it used conventional unguided bombs, successfully hit its targets, but
But highlighted the need for those upgrades still.
exactly. It underscored the need for standardized procedures and those critical tech upgrades we've been talking about, especially precision guidance.
And then came Kosovo, Operation Allied Force.
Yes, 1999 Allied Force, that was a major turning point. It was there that the B-1 used precision-guided munitions in combat for the very first time, really showed off its enhanced conventional power.
And there was something about decoys, too.
Yeah, what's also interesting is that during that operation, they did some rapid software updates that allowed the B-1 to use towed decoys, basically things it pulls behind it to lure away missiles, that significantly improved its survivability against enemy air defenses.
Smart adaptation. Then, of course, the post-9/11 era. The B-1 saw a lot of action in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Absolutely. Starting in 2001, Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, the B-1 quickly proved its worth, delivering precision strikes with JDAMs, even retargeting weapons in mid-flight based on new intel.
Became a real workhorse.
It really did. Gained a reputation as a highly effective, cost-efficient provider of air support, became a vital asset for close air support, helping troops on the ground.
But it wasn't perfect right out of the gate in those conflicts, was it? There were limitations.
Initially, yeah. The lack of an onboard targeting pod did limit its ISR intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capability, and it made certain close air support scenarios trickier, where you really needed precise visual ID of targets.
So they knew they needed that pod.
It was a recognized gap. And partly to free up funds for those needed modernizations, the B-1 fleet was actually consolidated down to 60 aircraft by late 2002.
And those modernizations brought some big improvements.
They really did. The Block E upgrade was a huge leap. Significantly improved weapons and avionics. It included the ability to carry smaller 500-pound JDAMs.
More flexibility for close support.
Exactly, and improved targeting systems. And crucially, the Sniper Advanced Targeting Pod, the ATP, was eventually integrated.
That was the big one for ISR, right?
Game changer. Dramatically improved its ISR capabilities, its effectiveness in counterinsurgency ops. Give it real-time video, much better target ID. Interestingly, adding that pod, because it was mounted externally, actually required an amendment to the START treaty.
Wow. Treaty implications for a targeting pod.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about its role in Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom?
In OIF, the B-1 continued to prove its value, especially for time-sensitive targets, things that needed hitting now. It even conducted strikes in downtown Baghdad against heavily defended targets, showcased it could still operate effectively in high-threat areas.
So it adapted throughout those long wars.
Yeah, throughout Afghanistan and Iraq, the B-1 adapted to changing mission needs. There was an increased focus on what they call non-traditional ISR, or NTISR,
Yeah.
basically using the bomber sensors for intel gathering, and also conducting shows of force, just flying low and loud to deter enemy activity.
And the numbers, the flight hours.
Pretty staggering. By December 2009, the B-1 fleet had racked up over 7,000 combat sorties and 80,000 combat hours just in Afghanistan and Iraq alone.
Incredible tempo.
Yeah.
And fast forward to, well, practically today, we're still seeing the B-1 being deployed to new strategic spots.
Yes, very recently, April 2025, B-1B is deployed to Misawa Air Base in Japan. First time ever for a bomber task force rotation there.
That seems significant. Why Misawa? Why now?
It is significant. It really underscores the B-1's continued importance for projecting power across the Indo-Pacific. It's a key part of the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, which is all about strengthening forward-deployed long-range strike capabilities in that really vital region.
And these bomber task force deployments, what's the strategy behind them?
They're designed strategically to give air crews crucial familiarity with different operating theaters, and they create valuable opportunities to integrate with allies and partners around the world. It's seen as a more flexible, less predictable way to forward deploy strategic assets compared to, say, older continuous rotational models.
And being based out of Misawa, Japan, that puts the B-1 in a pretty key location.
Absolutely. For Misawa, B-1s could potentially be tasked with missions related to North Korea, Russia, or the hotspots in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait. Plus, don't forget, the B-1 has a notable maritime strike capability. That's really important in the Indo-Pacific.
But even with this impressive history and these ongoing deployments, the B-1's future isn't infinite. There's a planned end date.
That's correct. Current Air Force plans are to retire both the B-1 and the B-2 stealth bomber in the early 2030s. That's timed as the next generation B-21 Raider comes online.
Okay, so why retire the B-1 maybe seemingly earlier than, say, the old B-52?
Well, the decision to retire the B-1 relatively early, it's largely driven by its maintenance demands. They're comparatively higher.
He's more work to keep flying.
Yeah, its maintenance man-hours per flying hour are the highest among all U.S. bombers. Plus, it's limited by treaty. It's prohibited from carrying cruise missiles.
Okay. And the B-52?
The B-52 is being kept around because it's got a versatile conventional payload, its maintenance needs are lower, and critically, it can carry the new long-range standoff cruise missile, the LRSO. Its mission-capable rates, its overall availability have also consistently been better than the B-1s.
And the B-21, a new bomber, is expected to take over that deep penetration role, the one the B-1 and B-2 currently handle.
That is the plan, yes. The B-21 is specifically designed with advanced stealth to operate effectively in highly contested environments, the kind with really advanced air defenses. This suggests that the B-1's ability to penetrate those kinds of defenses is seen as diminishing.
So looking back, the B-1 Lancer has truly been on quite an extraordinary journey.
It really has. You know, from those controversial beginnings as a nuclear bomber, navigating all the political storms and major tech hurdles, to its successful transformation into a highly effective conventional workhorse, and its relevance even today in this complex strategic world. It's a powerful story of adaptability.
And the dedication of the people involved, presumably.
Absolutely. The professionals who've flown it maintained it for decades.
And as we look towards its planned retirement in the early 2030s, its legacy, what it achieved, will surely influence what comes next in strategic air power.
No doubt. The lessons learned from the B-1's evolution, how it embraced innovation, its critical role in so many conflicts, that provides invaluable insight for developing and using future bomber platforms like the B-21.
We definitely encourage you to delve deeper into the B-1's fascinating history using some of the sources we touched on today. There's a lot more detail out there.
For sure.
Thanks again for joining us for this deep dive. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. And one last reminder, if you found this interesting, please do hit like and subscribe. It's a great way to support the show, helps us bring you more analyses like this. Thanks for listening.